Gail Burston says, God must be watching over me in her letters. And I want to get to something about that. You know, they used to say Eno is God. And in a way, it's easy for people who are very successful in show business to believe that about themselves. In the sense that Eno worked in media hypnosis and saw sees minds of automated plumbing in his consumer affairs audience. It's a half truth about it. The other thing is that God must be watching over me clearly signified a hidden executive. And the Texas school book was the powwow of the hidden executive. Show business like the Beatles got off the ground in Fayum in the era of the great dictators. And they were Mysterians. So you see Aleister Crowley on the cover of a Beatles record. And mysticism finds its way into the repertoire of King Crimson. You introduced me to Gurdjieff associates from the Idiots in Paris during the occupation. And Moonchild, their song, is based on a Crowley book. And it's about a little girl. And this mysterious musketeer with the little girl in a Shinto shrine outfit crossing her legs, named Rosemary Willis, is in Dealey Plaza as the shots rang out. I'll show you some other mysterious images that I'll explain. This is a Japanese diplomat, and behind him Oswald's body is coming out. Notice also the semiotic symbol of the nuclear bunker. And here he is talking to Sheriff Henry Wade before Jack Ruby of the strip joint shot Oswald. Another bowed head conference took place at Parkland Hospital. You know, a man in the Riddler's outfit comes into the police station while they're interrogating Oswald. So, what we're going to try to do today is talk about what Hustler and Ringo Starr have done with the world game of the hidden executive, the way that Hollywood promotes leaders and pays for and sponsors movements around the world. In light of the fact that so many people have gone along with the essay paper that justifies the murder of Martin Luther King. There has to be some explanation for why Pitt, NAACP, would advocate for King's assassins the way that they have and do. And it traces back to this formula of the idea that God must be watching over, must watch over the sheep. The hidden executive must watch over the sheep. And Kennedy was just a playboy. If you look at Jet magazine, you can see some of the indicators that black people went along with the assassination of King. And the issue, right after Kennedy was shot, you see a man peeping on a woman who looks like Coretta, but there's a two-timing shadow of another woman behind her. And King is bisected mysteriously. Not all the way because it hasn't happened yet, but Kennedy is bisected on the cover of the same month's Humanist magazine, which was the first issue with Robert Anton Wilson, who's from my part of the woods. I'm in Tacoma, Washington. So is Dawes C. Reeves, the author of The Question of Character. He's also from Tacoma. So this has all brought us to Tacoma for very good Hollywood sportsmanship reasons that this area was involved in organizing it. And what they do is they have a race dialectic over claims about what happened that justify and override concerns about entrapment, slander, and trafficking of children. Howard Lincoln, ne'er-do-well from T-Mobile, like an owner or president of the Mariners or something, used a sly word for chickenly. He took a $5,000 Eno word, milkweed toast, which has special connotations because the mill hunks are veterans and fighters. Queer is quee, toast, burn, Aaron Bush now. Like if you weren't a coward, you would self-sacrifice. And this claim of a legitimate dare comes from a braggart who licks the boots of Mel Gibson, stands by, salutes the murderers of JFK. And if he didn't, he would face assassination by the gloved assassin. Suicide by the gloved assassin, not to go along with the killers. And the script had a lot about expressions of untouchability. The author said, ick, about the goyim. Don't let the goyim, ick, touch you. So the Hollywood word game is heaped with this idea that Margaret Thatcher and Margaret that Margaret Mead, anthropology, would charm the socks off the infected so that they didn't wipe their boogers on you. And the tribal law of the hidden executive powwow is that you shall not question this. So, the things that they've done are on record. It's pretty sick, and they accuse me of being a party crasher. The Beatles were the party crashers. They insisted on being number one. That meant getting Kennedy out of the way. And the trick of the trick is to make you cheer the assassination of JFK when you hear that they were actually advocating for the young and the beautiful. And they would have people on Petticoat Junction back in those days. The Beatles are the most popular thing in America. It was really ugly self-regard at a time of mourning and tragedy. But the rich are very poor sports. And that's just sort of their class character. And they have this pinball mania for like automated mentalities. So when you see Angela Dickinson kiss a race driver on the glove and the killers, her boyfriend. She says, better luck next time. Better luck this time. You know, you're supposed to think it's just a movie, but it's actually the pinprick of a mentality that they're cultivating. And it's a direct reference to what they were doing, which was setting up for Hitler's revenge through Hollywood Media Control Board. And one of the tricks of the trick is that you're supposed to cheer the people who avenged John Lennon by cheering the murder of Searcy and JFK and so on. When John Lennon pulled a Houdini, that's what I'll get to. But mass assumptions are that that's not true. And mass assumptions are a form of hypnosis. That's something the media knows very well. If you look at Inside the Car with JFK, Hollywood's most daring bedroom scene, the skull has a signifier gun. You can barely see it in this. That there's a line, there's something balanced on the skull at the exact trajectory that Jackie Kennedy holds something to his throat before his head explodes. And you see Angela Dickinson in one of her movies. She says, all widows carry guns. That's how some of them become widows. So the Kennedys have fallen in with Jackie Kennedy's sponsor, which is the hidden executive. And so they're advocating for the powwow. But it was about First Lady's honor. Would you have the First Lady end up in the real pit barbecue of the Jewish Broadway musical hair magnate Jack Ruby at the Carousel Club? And the mysterious man from Uncle who followed JFK around has in one of its early episodes the Bealers, which is a contraction of Beatles and Hitler. And it's clear that this is what Hollywood's disgraceful media system was doing. And they had me fooled. I'll show you this. I now know he pulled a Houdini. And he knew that they were going to do this. That's his way of saying suckers. If you look at Ian Fleming's work, you find You Only Live Twice. The headline says the British naval commander was murdered, but he comes right out of a coffin and says, I have permission to come aboard, sir. In You Only Live Twice, which co-starred Akiko Wakabayashi, which has this peephole. And she starred in the 1966 Mothra film. Here she is in the 1966 Mothra film. And here is her co-star. And the script says, I say is, not was. That's how the script begins, right? And they put up a whole legacy of things in Police Gazette style. McCartney is dead, the great hoax. And of course, as I said, they wanted to be number one before they came to America, which meant get rid of Kennedy. This is number one kung fu. We'll know you're alive. And this is their gang in other Hollywood films. He thinks I'm dead. This is in Mannix. I'd like you to find out who killed me. And this is something that audacious the Hitler cinema thought up. Timeless film moment when cinema reflects upon itself in a mirror of reality. Remember what I said about the peephole and Akiko Kurosawa film in the Holocaust? You're supposed to be changing your allegiance and get away from those milk with toast womanizers. And of course, they're very concerned about Generation Z getting the wrong ideas. I'll read you something from Generation Z Explained. Some Generation Zers also question the model of long-term exclusive relationships, including marriage. Even those interviewees who were in such relationships made comments to the effect that we are together now, but we'll know we'll break up when something happens that makes us less interested in continuing with the relationship. They should know that they're being tricked by a MAGA type movement that has created a two virgins artificial intelligence surveillance system that won't allow them to leave relationships so easily. They should know that. This public education. Now he says he wants a table, and the waiter is saying there isn't one. He says if the President of the United States were to come in and wanted to sit at the table, would you have one for him? And he says, of course. So he says, well, I guarantee he won't be here. Notice how the towel is over his hand. It's very subtle how Nayensky and Diaghilev informed the ballet system. There's Errol Flynn with the coat over his hand. And here's a man taken behind the grassy knoll after Kennedy is murdered with a coat over his hand, identical to the one you just saw of Errol Flynn. And we're back to Angela Dickinson in The Killers, which was made simultaneously with setting up Kennedy. He says, okay, Reagan says, okay, here he comes, start timing. Start timing, right? And he says, he sees the sign. You can see this happening in Dealey Plaza. The Stemmons Freeway sign comes into play. He sees the sign and waits. Exactly as happened in Dealey Plaza. Let him get out of sight. Give him 5 seconds, he says. And they put out a book, 6 Seconds in Dallas. So you can see the mirror of reality that was wielded by the promoters of Yoko Ono, basically, is what they are. And the trick of the trick is for you to weep and wail that your only chance was with John Lennon. And here's what the powwow is advocating for. Jonas Salk, survival of the wisest, and sexual self-destruct, the conscience of the West. Generation Zers have to be tricked, in other words, to go along with the immolation of their peers. And they have been by Jill. Jill gave me this purple disc thing. If you go into the record books, Ming No Wen really liked Sting because Sting heard about Leslie and said, "Ha," about James Curry. Just ha. And that was the end of it. That was the Hollywood pinball machines ruling that James Curry was drooling. And it comes up in a context that's very disturbing that pertains to the war game that was created by baseball. It's called Pussy Ball, the diamond and stuff, which they lied about what was done to me. They used the language of what was true. Nearly killed me, forced me to swallow. Swallow Barn is by John Pendleton Kennedy. So you get that walrus system, the John Kennedy unit. And they have a play action for the diva on my birthday. If you think that's strange, you're sure to think this is strange too. The first 4 numbers that they assigned me for my Social Security card are none other than 1984. So the hidden executive powwow not only illustrates that they're using poison. Jill gave me a purple disc thingo. And surround my name with positive and negative signs. They use poison in the context of the war game on Mount Desert Island. But as I say, race dialectic is, if these people killed King, comes the question, don't you want Nelson Mandela to win? It's a rather odd mindset. But you see Noah and Free Nelson Mandela in cement writing where these people operated from. And they, of course, made their case known in their normal guerrilla theater methods, which come out in some of their publications where they mocked the severe neurological implant that was causing me to have free seizures when they molested me sexually. They clearly knew. They even used Kennedy, two faces of Kennedy, one in which he's been disfigured. And they have this guy who's in the arts in New York, Matthew Yoko Blonsky, at the Pitt News, writing there in secret. This is the real John Lennon, by the way. It's in How I Won the War. And you see the lookalikes of Gail Burstyn with the rerouted motorcade symbol. Here from 1979 and Robert Fripp's record. Here from Seattle Center, with a pole going between her legs and the geisha like King Crimson's album. And the thunderclap gesture over their ears and says, it will be like starting over, which is his last famous song. So what they did was they say, I'm really sick of Nabucco and her stupid code of what boys should do and girls should do. She was the leader of the star of Children of Hiroshima. And so the code is you'll learn to be moral and declare your virginity, keep your virginity, to give it to whoever Donald Trump assigns, or you'll go to the gas chamber in the name of the Third Reich's copyright law. And here it is at the Pitt News, says the Yoko dude. You know, I show you. See, Yoko Blonsky, Matthew Yoko Blonsky. They used to look alike the Ripper murder, Shannon Harps. I had gone to court against the man. He castrated me after they provided a Milanese virgin for me, courtesy penis Gabriel. See, this is what they were doing, and they castrated the deaf poet. That's how sick these awful, these awful people in Seattle were. I made a meme of that Greek actor. It says, John Lennon was killed. That makes Reagan Chief Joseph. They talk about injecting, don't know who signs this, like Donald Ono and Nosferatu, and the greening of Germany, right? And they have Dixon and Lady Panthers setting up the pussy ball over Midori Goto. She was the diva of the arrangement, and I fell into their entrapment. And you want Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, you want the black man, you don't want the white man with the symbol of the war game of totality. And they put flashcards in Seattle, and they built this thing at the Sacred Mountain because it disappears. It's very suggestive, a magic mountain like that Mount Ido or whatever it is. And it's a dome, just like Hiroshima has a dome. And then these humanitarians who want equity. These they say, oh, they say to Jimmy Quirball because he doesn't want to be in Aaron Bushnell. And what do these brave men do? They drop mega bunker buster bombs on people in tents. And you're not supposed to say Howard Lincoln is a dismal and pathetic embarrassment, because it's true. Howard Lincoln is a dismal and pathetic embarrassment. And the administration knew that they were doing this. The administration knew that they were doing this. In 2019, they sent me a Wuhan Tea Party, CT for conspiracy theory, on November 27th. Tee up for Wuhan. See, and they have, Shifty has this like ghoulish Wuhan Tea Party. These were the Chinese brilliant stuff. And they kill Circe, right? They kill Circe. And one of the guys, I don't have it handy, but he's waving her tabutsi, a symbol of her tabutsi, because she got forced to give it up before they killed her. And see, but the powwow says this is what the queers want to do. See how they have scorched arses and ATS, because ATS was the one that went with Wen to Sting and said, ham, that's Jimmy Curry. So they had it all figured out with Margaret Mead, Brian Eno pinball mindset mentality for the Swami Nostra of Two Virgins Pussy Ball. And I went into the Carnegie Mellon University newspaper. It was 1994, and I warned that this was the Israelis' attempt to get revenge for Auschwitz. It's right there in print. Everybody saw it. Everybody knew. And they used John Lennon's production system to confuse the issue, because they said John Lennon is too important for these people to be protected, because it's a question of stealing his enigma from British Workers' Party to warn people and protect them. You don't want to warn people and protect them. That would, and you'll trigger us to rip or murder an innocent bystander over that Workers' Party penny.